webinar looks to the Dance LabDay interdisciplinary workshops curated by the COVUNI CultureMoves team, exploring the methodology behind them and the types of theoretical and practical activities they comprised. We also point you towards our tips for designing an interdisciplinary LabDay style workshop. CultureMoves is a European-funded project which explores the intersections of dance technology, site tourism, and the Europeana online library. The project runs for 18 months and aims to develop a series of digital tools that will enable new forms of dance educational resources by leveraging reuse of Europeana archival content. CultureMoves aims to demonstrate the value of reimagining the ways in which content can be used to encourage dancers to develop their creativity. Central to the project is a consideration of how dance can create new forms of engagement to spread the knowledge of cultural heritage and also the history of a territory. The material body and the digital platform is a meeting place where the user can consider archives and the immaterial. The CultureMoves tools allow opportunities for artists, dancers, and choreographers to reflect on different forms of collaboration and encourage new horizons for their practices through the creating of digital scrapbooks. Through the exploration of the digital content, which may include still or moving images, Europeana and the CultureMoves tools hope to encourage users to reflect on how we archive, remember the past, and engage the live body. Ezra Orju and Nuwosu claim that, quote, the fluidity, flexibility, and permeability of culture does not allow it to be static, end quote, thus allowing for artistic traditions and practices to cross-fertilize one another. Visual arts can have cross-cultural meaning, and so Europeana's digital content may instigate the live body to appreciate various cultural contexts. The user can come to know more about themselves, site, and cultural heritage legacies of that site through the unique process of engaging in a hybrid practice that the digital platform of the CultureMoves Toolkit offers. As a key part of the project, the team invited key stakeholders together to participate in a number of CultureMoves LabDays, or interdisciplinary workshops, to explore these bigger questions of site, dance, education, tourism, cultural heritage, and digital storytelling.
We are here today at the space of CDER, where we have a special occasion, which is a runner-up event to the Dance and Somatic Practices Conference, which is starting tomorrow. And with this occasion, we have organized this workshop where in the morning, key stakeholders from Coventry were able to participate in the Lab Day. And in the afternoon, participants to the conference, researchers, choreographers, and dance artists who are more focused on somatic practices are going to join us into the session. Each of the sessions starts with a small introduction to the CultureMoves project, the activities that we do there, and what Europeana is and how it can be used. We continue then to explore in more details the scrapbook tool, which we have developed within CultureMoves, and we give a small tutorial about it, continuing afterwards with the participants having the chance to create their own accounts and to play around with the tool. We're very excited about the feedback that we have been receiving today over the course of the day, especially at the end of each session. We have had a discussion round, and the participants were able to write post-its around the number of questions that we have prepared for them. One of the very nice things that we have found out is that there are many more uses of the scrapbook tool than we initially thought about. So as you can see here, the participants have thought of a number of ways in which they could use this, and we're very excited to follow this up.
On July the 4th, 2019, the CultureMoves team organised a hands-on workshop at CDER, the Centre for Dance Research at Coventry University in the UK. The workshop took the format of a lab day and formed part of a pre-conference event for the 5th Dance and Somatic Practices Conference, which took place at CDER between the 5th and the 7th of July 2019. The Dance and Somatic Practices Conference invited somatic practitioners, dance artists and dance scholars from a range of subject domains to debate and share investigations in the field of somatically informed dance practices. 2019's event also marked the celebration of the 10-year anniversary of the Journal of Dance and Somatic Practices. This was an auspicious occasion that was used by the CultureMoves LabDay as a starting point for the practical tasks of the workshop. The main focus of this hands-on lab day was to demonstrate the first version of the tools developed within the CultureMoves project, more specifically Move Scrapbook, a digital application which allows users to collect, manage and organise their own content or reusable content coming from Europeana. Using this tool, it is possible to easily create scrapbooks for various purposes. For example, for choreographers organising ideas and inspirational material as a starting point to creating a new work, or for dance lecturers and educators to document the progress of students towards creative assignments, and for students to support their practice and portfolio building. The scrapbooks created can be both private and public, displayed on the account of the CultureMoves portal, or embedded into an existing website or blog. Moreover, the visual nature of the scrapbooks make them ideal for sharing via social media. The Coventry Lab Day was organised in two distinct sessions, one in the morning with participants mainly from the academic educational field, and an afternoon session where mainly dance educators, practitioners and artists attended. In total, the Lab Day was attended by a very international crowd of 21 participants from several countries, including Germany, Brazil, Hong Kong and the USA. Both the morning and the afternoon sessions had similar setup. Following an initial welcome and introduction to the session, the participants were introduced to the CultureMoves project in general and the Move Scrapbook tool in more detail, using an interactive tutorial which explains the user journey from registration to publishing the first scrapbook. Following this, the participants had about 1 hour to explore the tool for themselves, uploading their content and creating scrapbooks. The CultureMoves team was in the room assisting the participants with any questions they had. The conversations that emerged during this period were an excellent occasion to collect unstructured qualitative feedback from the participants. Before the end of the session, the participants gathered together and were asked to answer anonymously a few questions by writing down their answers on post-it notes. The main question was, apart from organising ideas, how else do you imagine using the scrapbook tool? Other questions related to the topic of previous lab days, such as the relationship between dance, public spaces and tourism, as well as the challenges faced by dance artists working in sight. Finally, the group of participants gathered together and had a small discussion around the topics explored during the day. The afternoon participants also had the chance to stay and work with renowned somatic dance author, researcher and educator Dr. Martha Eddy, and Sandra Golding, the UK's leading African holistic dance practitioner, during a movement workshop entitled Crossing Borders Respectfully, which offered participants a chance to dialogue about working with different styles of movement, analysis and body sensing, while interacting through dance and/or somatic exploration with people of different races and cultures. The feedback received on the day was positive, with participants noting the ease of the use of the tool and the many possibilities that it could provide for supporting their work. This was especially important since one of the main goals of Move Scrapbook was to be user-friendly enough so that even users who are not well versed in using digital technologies were invited to use the tool. Moreover, the feedback informed further functionalities that could be implemented over the next few months, such as scrapbook visualization options and additional content metadata editing capabilities. The discussions during the event also led to further opportunities for deploying the scrapbook tool in the lecture studio and the classroom, and for further lab days.
The CultureMoves COVUNI team curated a series of theoretical and practical lab day workshops with Europeana content and the tools to explore their potential for choreographic work. LabDays range from the discursive and theoretical, exploring questions of dance, site, cultural heritage, and tourism, to the practical and hands-on, creating new choreographic movement scores in the dance studio, using the tools and Europeana content as a springboard for new dance material. LabDays took place across the UK in Coventry, Birmingham, Salford, Manchester, Leeds, and Worcester, and brought together a wide variety of key stakeholders: dance artists, dance learners, educators, choreographers, programmers, and curators in settings as varied as universities, independent dance studios, regional dance houses, and industry conferences. For our very first 2 LabDays, right at the beginning of the project, we engaged with key stakeholders with a range of profiles and experience: choreographers, dance artists, dance researchers, dance educators, dance students, undergrad and postgraduate, and outdoor arts practitioners. COVUNI chose to aim their first LabDay at dance students in cultural heritage and dance organizations in the region, holding their first LabDay in Birmingham, UK on the 15th of November 2018. This took the format of an open panel conversation between choreographer Rosie Kay, artistic director of Dance Exchange, and artistic lead for BIDF 2018, Lucy Mirkova, and executive director of Dance Exchange, Claire Lewis, to discuss dance, cities, and working within site-based festival contexts. The context of the 10-year growth of BIDF, Birmingham International Dance Festival, framed the conversation, which drew out questions of how dance makers, artists, producers, and commissioners approach site-based dance work, and how key relationships can develop between dancers, arts, and cultural heritage organizations within a festival context. The second LabDay, held at CDARE, Coventry University, UK, on the 19th of November 2018, was geared towards dance researchers, professional dance artists, and festival producers and organizers. This event began with an illustrated talk by senior research fellow, artist, and choreographer Rosemary Lee, followed by a panel discussion on dance, cities, and communities with Natalie Garrett-Brown from Sensing the City, Jane Hitch, CEO from Imagineer Productions, and Sarah Wuki, dance artist, researcher, and CDARE PhD candidate. Again, the rich 3-hour discussion drew out questions of how artists approach site work. Key questions raised included how dance artists and students might engage with city planners and cultural policymakers, and how dance artists might claim tourism and the touristic gaze. The panel described how, while economically driven agendas may have huge impact on culture and tourism, dance, with its emphasis on flow and flux, might be a valuable means of making connections in the fragmented cities here in the UK's current socio-political context.
On the 25th of February 2019, the Coventry University CultureMoves team met with 24 very engaged first-year architecture undergraduates to discuss design, public space, dance, and cultural heritage. The undergraduates were working on a course project to design dance facilities, both indoor and outdoor, along the Coventry canals, and so were interested in meeting with the CultureMoves team to talk about the differences between dancing in studios and dancing in outdoor spaces. The morning began with a visit to 3 different dance studios in both the university's Ellen Terry and Institute of Creative Enterprise buildings. We discussed what dancers require from a studio space and what a dancer's idea of an ideal studio might look like. The discussion then broadened into a look at site-based dance practice and what happens when dance occurs outside of the studio setting, such as in various spaces from museums and heritage buildings to National Trust gardens, for example, and the impact that working and performing in these different settings has on the making and performing of the work for both choreographer and dancer, as well as for the audience. This enabled the students to begin to explore the ramifications for the design of indoor and outdoor spaces when these are used for dance making and performance, and the ways in which architecture, dance, and site interact. The students were then introduced to the wider CultureMoves project and the Europeana platform, and spent some time at the Centre for Dance Research exploring the CultureMoves Dance Memory, Space and Trace photo exhibit as a prompt to discussing dance and the design of public spaces. The exhibition opened onto a lively discussion of the overlap between choreography and architecture, and how both dance and architecture are interested in form, volume, space and order, and how both are potentially interested in telling the story of a place. Architecture lecturer Dr. Tulika Gadakari said afterwards how much the students had valued the detailed visit to the Centre for Dance Research, and how they were buzzing with ideas when they left the studio and very pleased to have a dancer's insight to help with their design process. We are now hoping to build on the connections which we have made with our colleagues and their students in architecture, and together with our colleagues and friends of the project at the Sensing the City project, we are currently planning further collaborative student workshops on movement and sensory experience to further investigate dance, public spaces, heritage settings and urban planning, especially in the context of Coventry City of Culture 2021. The project's connection with architecture students and the potential of Move Scrapbook and Motion Notes for architecture students with the emphasis on learning about the moving sensing body in space, possibly also alongside and interacting with dancers and dance students, has been ongoing. On September the 30th, 2019, the Coventry University CultureMoves team welcomed architecture tutor Sebastian Hicks and a group of 10 postgraduate architecture students to the Digital Arts Studio at CEDAR, the Centre for Dance Research, for an afternoon lab day workshop exploring the Moves Scrapbook and Moves Collect tools and engaging with Europeana content as a springboard to discussing the relationships between dance, public spaces and tourism. After introducing the project's main concepts, Europeana and the digital toolkit, the CultureMoves team walked the students through IN2's online tutorial about the tools and offered them the opportunity to use the Moves Scrapbook and the Moves Collect plugin to explore the Europeana digital library and to curate mini collections using content sourced from Europeana. The students also explored how the scrapbook tool might be useful for their own architectural practice, for example in collating project portfolios. Professional dancer Sarah McQueen was also present in the studio space throughout the lab day, responding to the students' engagement and interaction with the tools by creating improvised movement and new choreography. Sarah's observations of the collections created by the students culminated in the development of a new choreographic score that she performed for everyone at the end of the afternoon. Following the sharing of the new choreographic work, there was a rich discussion about architecture, dance, digital storytelling, body, space, site and tourism, as well as an opportunity for the students to give valuable feedback on the tools. The students were engaged throughout, and the afternoon was a lively example of the potential richness of the interaction between dance, education, and digital tools for content reuse.
In November 2019, the CEDAR CultureMoves team hosted a series of more hands-on practical lab day workshops. In early November, we met with artists, researchers, practitioners, and dance experts across the north of the UK. Leeds with Slanjava Danza, Manchester, Anton Mirto, and Amy Voris to undertake theoretical and practical explorations of Europeana and the CultureMoves, digital storytelling and dance annotation tools, using the Moves Collect and Moves Scrapbook and Motion Notes. The first CultureMoves Playful Exploration Lab Day took place with Slanjava Danza Company in Leeds in November 2019. Slanjava Danza was established in 2004 by artistic director and choreographer Jen Wren, who aims to produce high-quality artistic dance productions and complementary education and participation programs. Inspired by real life, the arts, the sciences, and human well-being, the company aims to entertain, inform, and inspire the individuals and communities that it comes into contact with. The CultureMoves team worked with artistic director Jen Wren and dance artists and choreographers Leticia Cabezudo and Charlotte Mathieson to explore Europeana content and to create mini dance scores and consider the relationship between dance, public spaces, and tourism. The Lab Day allowed participants to explore Europeana, the digital online library, the CultureMoves tools, and to create movement scores in the studio using the digital content as inspiration.
Also in November 2019, the team presented the project and the toolkit with an interactive session and hands-on workshop at One Dance UK's international conference, Regenerations 2019, in Salford, UK. This biennial academic and artistic conference aims to share current practice and research in the field of dance of the African diaspora, and to explore further research, documentation and approaches to education in the field. It was an exciting opportunity for the team to share the tools with a wide range of dance artists, practitioners, scholars, teachers and students from across the Caribbean, Africa, the United States, Canada and the UK. The CultureMoves team held a practical and interactive workshop, inviting delegates to engage with the project's materials and also to have the space to discuss dance, diasporic digital content, the CultureMoves toolkit, and site practice in relation to their own work. The workshop aimed to offer delegates an opportunity to learn more about the project, the digital tools being developed, Moves Collect, Moves Scrapbook and Motion Notes, and Europeana as a case study for how digital technologies might be used for artistic innovation and creative practice through the reuse of digital content. The emphasis here was also on how the tools lend themselves to thinking about the way that content is curated online within social media platforms, and how they can open up possibilities for what digital storytelling and counter-narratives around diverse communities might look like.
This Lab Day in Manchester, UK was focused on looking at the potential of the Motion Notes annotation tool with artist Anton Mirto of London-based A2 Company. Mirto and the team looked at annotating footage from Mirto's previous work to explore her choreographic and performance practice.
This Lab Day with dance artist researcher Amy Vorris took place in Manchester, UK. Amy's practice is process-oriented and collaborative, driven by the desire to develop enduring relationships with people and with movement material, with the outcome of the work contingent on hunches and interactions that occur during the process, and varying widely. The CultureMoves team was in the studio with Amy and other regionally based artists, Danny Abelhauer, Sheila Deval-Madsen, Ellen Jeffrey and Shelley Owen, to playfully explore Europeana and the CultureMoves tools, and especially the Motion Notes annotator.
After a series of successful CultureMoves Lab Days across the UK in November, the CDARE COVUNI team held another Lab Day taking place on December 2nd, 2019, with several dancers from across the local region coordinated in junction with Birmingham Dance Network and taking place at the Dance Exchange in Birmingham, UK, where we held one of the very first CultureMoves Lab Day coffee and conversation events last year. Birmingham Dance Network is the go-to support network for independent dance artists, choreographers and teachers who live and work in and around the UK's second city. Led by a team of independent dance artists with diverse portfolio careers spanning performance, teaching, community dance, choreography and more, BDN aims to create opportunities to easily discover and connect with other artists, choreographers and teachers, as well as opportunities for professional development and training. Their main focus is contemporary dance, but they welcome artists with a range of artistic practices. BDN works across the city and regionally, connecting with other arts organizations to try to create the best professional development opportunities for the city's dance artists. For this Birmingham Lab Day, the team was thrilled to be working alongside BDN and 6 locally based dance artists and choreographers, which included Sophie Barraclaw, Rosie Cook, Stephanie Donahue, Shelley Eva Hayden, Flor Hall, and Rob Hemming. Between them, the 6 Lab Day participants have a vast range of professional dance expertise and a variety of dance styles. The dancers explored the Europeana site and content, thinking about space, memory, place, body, and trace, and what heritage, intangible cultural heritage, means to them as dance artists and choreographers. They then familiarize themselves with the Moves scrapbook and Moves Collect plugin to curate material from Europeana and then create new choreographic scores in the studio.
Finally, following the wealth of LabDays that the CultureMoves team have undertaken, here are some tips on designing a project LabDay interdisciplinary workshop, looking at the intersections of dance, cultural heritage, and new technology. Designing a LabDay. Carefully consider your project's proposed stakeholders. Highlight the rationale for and processes of identifying and involving key stakeholders. For example, for CultureMoves, we identified stakeholders from a range of profiles from the fields of dance, education, and tourism. These included dance academics and researchers, teachers, students, education experts, choreographers, dance artists, producers, and festival programmers, as well as DMOs, tourism operators, cultural heritage institutions, festival organisers, and creative marketing agencies. Consider your existing networks to identify potential stakeholders within them and connections to further broaden your networks and the reach of the LabDay. In the case of CultureMoves, a series of meetings was carried out to ensure that the proposed list of stakeholders considered a number of parameters. We wanted to ensure that we approached an equal number of male to female participants, that we not only extended the LabDays to our current contacts, but extended the work to wider networks that could help further disseminate the project and Europeana. Take care to ensure an equal balance of gender ratio, demographics, etc. Through an inclusion of diverse voices in well-programmed LabDays, the project will gain an increased understanding of the assumptions, limitations, relationships, and intersections between sectors. Conduct a survey of existing research and practice in order to consider how the chosen project seeks to address the gaps in research and how these can be explored through the LabDay. Define the clear purposes of the proposed LabDay. For example, to engage in in-depth consultation with key stakeholders, to begin to identify the key questions and assumptions that underlie existing and potential collaborations between sectors, to capture the voices of key stakeholders and offer them an opportunity to learn about the project. Consider the format of the LabDay. Might it be a curated panel discussion, a day of more formal presentations, or an interactive workshop? In the case of CultureMoves, LabDays to date have consisted of formats as diverse as a short coffee and conversation hour, an illustrated talk by a guest speaker followed by a guest panel and Q&A session, fuller presentations, interactive and practical workshops exploring dance and Europeana content, and a co-creation workshop where participants actively collaborated on designing scenarios and practical proposals of the use of dance and audio-video content as a promotional instrument of tourism destinations. Carefully consider the intended audience and participants for the LabDays. The format of the LabDay will necessarily depend on the invited stakeholders and participants and should be curated specifically for them. In the case of the CultureMoves Coventry University LabDays, for example, one was geared more towards dance students and cultural heritage and dance organisations in the region, whilst the other was tailored more towards dance researchers, professional dance artists, and festival producers and organisers. Consider the reach of the LabDay. Is the thinking local, regional, national? How might this affect the design and programming of the LabDay, timing and scheduling, for example? Define a comprehensive working question set to use as a basis to discussion. Ensure that this is circulated to invited speakers and guest panellists beforehand in good time. In the design of a LabDay, consider any budget restrictions, and specifically when working with independent, self-employed and freelance artists. Take care to carefully consider their needs. How are they to be compensated for their time, for example? Financially, covering travel expenses and their time, or through in-kind support? For example, with CultureMoves, we invited key artist stakeholders to become friends of the project, with the offer to disseminate information about their performance work through the project website and social media channels in exchange for their time at a lab day. How might a lab day then become a useful networking opportunity for all involved? Think of creative and innovative ways to work towards inclusivity of various voices throughout the lab day. For example, during the CultureMoves Lab Days, the Dance Memory Space and Trace photo exhibition was co-curated by a number of key stakeholders. CDARE, the Centre for Dance Research, was keen to transform the space for the Coventry University Lab Days and allow the invited artists and panel members to showcase one image from their practice or previous projects. In preparing these lab days, it emerged that there were many visuals that conveyed aspects of projects and moments that revealed highly emotional, political, social interactions between the dancer, the site, and the public. This point felt like an important aspect to build on and to capture, which then encouraged the CDARE team to ask the artist to contribute a memory which was connected to the image or the project that they were going to be speaking about during the lab day. In addition, several key stakeholders were unable to attend these events and so were invited to contribute via the photo exhibition. This further broadened the reach of the Lab Day and ensured involvement from key stakeholders who were unable to be physically present on the day. The photo exhibit continues to grow and has now become a key part of more recent Lab Day interventions in the project and our dissemination activities. Consider any ethics issues. Remember consent forms for participants' consent to take part in research, to be audio and video recorded, and so forth. Finally, think about how you will document the Lab Day and disseminate information through it. For example, documenting through photography and video, ensuring permissions are in place beforehand, live tweeting, sharing images, comments via social media, or a blog post post-event.